Welcome to Robraintics, where we discuss recent research advancements in the field of neuroscience and robotics. Welcome back to Robraintics. Ready for your January brain boost? It's amazing how much cool neuroscience stuff came out just this month.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in with this study from Nature Communications that really caught my eye. It involves monkeys playing catch, which honestly sounds a lot more fun than your typical research experiment.
Yeah. That's a clever study for sure. So researchers were looking at how our brains simulate the physical world around us, which is something called mental simulation. They had these macaque monkeys play a ball interception game, and what they discovered is that the monkeys' brains could actually predict where the ball was going to go, even when it was hidden from view. It all comes down to a brain region called the dorsomedial frontal cortex, or DMFC for short. This area is known to be involved in planning and decision-making. But this research suggests it also plays a crucial role in creating these internal models of the world. So think of it like your brain has a little physics engine running in the background, constantly calculating trajectories and predicting outcomes. And the implications of this are huge. It suggests our brains are constantly running simulations to help us navigate the world and make decisions.
Well, let's not get too existential just yet. We've got a lot more brain-bending research to cover. This next study, also from Nature Communications, dives into the intricate network of connections within our brains.
Yes. This one focuses on interneurons, which are specialized cells that act like traffic controllers, regulating the flow of information between different parts of the brain. They're essential for everything from learning and memory to sensory processing and motor control. And what this study did was map out the complex pathways of over 685,000 interneurons in developing human and macaque brains. It's like creating a detailed roadmap of the brain's highway system.
I'm trying to picture that in my head. It must be an incredibly complex map.
And in the brain, these disruptions have been linked to neurodevelopmental disorders like autism and schizophrenia.
Oh, wow.
So by understanding how these interneuron connections form and function, we can potentially develop new therapies to address these conditions.
Okay, I've got to ask about this next study. A study in Nature looked at how short breaks affect learning. And guess what they found? Those breaks actually lead to significant performance improvements.
In this study, they had monkeys learn a motor sequence, like a series of movements. And they found that short breaks led to these bursts of neural activity called reactivations.
Reactivation. So it's like the brain is replaying and solidifying the learned patterns during the break, even though we're not consciously thinking about it.
Exactly. They even found specific brainwaves called ripples that are associated with these reactivations and learning improvements.
So maybe those aha moments you get after stepping away from a problem aren't just coincidences. Maybe it's our brains doing some behind-the-scenes work during those breaks.
That's the takeaway here. Breaks aren't just about resting our bodies. They're crucial for our brains to process and consolidate information.
Well, this deep dive has already given me a lot to think about, and we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, right?
Let's move on to part 2, where we'll delve into some even more mind-blowing research.
Sounds good.
This next study takes us to a completely different realm of brain research: how we experience ownership of our own bodies.
It is a fascinating study published in Nature Communications. They were looking at stroke patients with a condition called disturbed sensation of ownership, or DSO. It's a really challenging condition where people feel like their affected limb, like an arm or a leg, doesn't belong to them. Well, the researchers found that these stroke patients with DSO had lower hand temperatures in both their affected and unaffected limbs compared to stroke patients without DSO. They also had a harder time sensing temperature, both warm and cold. It seems like our brains rely on a variety of sensory signals, including temperature, to create a coherent sense of our bodies in space. So when those signals get disrupted, like after a stroke, it can throw off our entire body map. And this study adds to a growing body of research that suggests our sense of self isn't just based on what we see or hear, but also on what we feel inside our bodies. So those internal sensations like temperature, heartbeat, and even our gut feelings might play a much bigger role in our sense of self than we realize.
Yeah, that's a really intriguing idea. It's like our bodies are constantly sending these subtle signals to our brains, and our brains are piecing it all together to create this unified sense of who we are. Okay, this next study is one that I think everyone can relate to. It's about how our brains deal with distractions, which feels especially relevant in our hyper-connected world.
Yes. The ever-present challenge of multitasking. This study, published in Nature Human Behavior, used a really clever experimental setup to see how people manage multiple sources of distraction. It's like trying to focus on work while your phone is buzzing, the dog is barking, and your kids are asking for snacks all at the same time.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well.
Mhm.
So what did they find? Are our brains doomed to crumble under the weight of all these distractions?
Surprisingly, no. The study actually found that we're remarkably good at adapting to conflict, but in a very specific way. When we experience conflict from a particular distraction, our brains learn to suppress that specific distraction on subsequent trials. It suggests we have multiple independent conflict detectors in our brains, each specialized for a different type of distraction. And when one of these detectors is repeatedly activated, it triggers a suppression mechanism that helps us filter out that specific distraction.
That makes sense. It's like our brains are constantly prioritizing and filtering information, trying to figure out what's important and what we can safely ignore.
Exactly. And this ability to filter out irrelevant information is essential for staying focused and achieving our goals in a world that's constantly bombarding us with stimuli. This study is just a starting point, but it's giving us valuable insights into the neural mechanisms that underlie our ability to focus and filter out noise.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a topic that's incredibly important and unfortunately affects millions of people worldwide: Alzheimer's disease.
Yes, it's a devastating neurodegenerative disorder, and researchers are working tirelessly to understand its causes and develop effective treatments. This study, published in Nature Communications Medicine, used a sophisticated computational model to analyze brain scans from the Alzheimer's Disease Neuroimaging Initiative database. They were focusing on the balance of excitation and inhibition in the brain, also known as EI balance. This balance is crucial for normal brain function. Think of it like a symphony orchestra. You need all the different instruments to be playing in harmony for the music to sound beautiful. They found in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease is that this EI balance is disrupted, and this disruption gets progressively worse as the disease advances. They observed a reduction in the strength of connections between different brain regions, and this reduction was particularly pronounced in inhibitory connections. The researchers also found that this EI imbalance was most pronounced in areas of the brain that are known to be affected early on in Alzheimer's disease, like the hippocampus, which is crucial for memory formation.
So this study is basically providing a more detailed picture of how Alzheimer's disrupts the brain's intricate communication system. It sounds like this kind of detailed understanding is crucial for developing more targeted treatments.
Absolutely. If we can pinpoint the specific neural circuits that are affected by Alzheimer's, we can potentially develop therapies that aim to restore that delicate EI balance and slow down or even reverse the progression of the disease.
That's a hopeful thought. It's amazing how much progress has been made in understanding Alzheimer's in recent years, and I'm really encouraged by the research that's being done to find effective treatments.
Me too. It's a complex and challenging disease, but each new discovery brings us closer to finding a cure.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the surprising role of temperature in our sense of self to the brain's remarkable ability to adapt to distractions.
Yeah, we have.
We've learned about the brain's intricate highway systems, the surprising connection between temperature and our sense of self, and the power of our brains to predict the future.
It's truly remarkable how much we're learning about the brain, and I'm excited to see what new discoveries await us in the years to come.
Well, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of neuroscience, be sure to subscribe and leave a like. And let us know in the comments what other brain-bending topics you'd like us to explore next. There's a whole universe of fascinating research out there, and we're just getting started. Thanks for joining us on Robraintics.